Secondly, we have to look for new sources. I'm convinced that, and I've been involved in looking at the GIC program. I'm convinced we can make up some revenue in possibly joining the GIC program with the state. Now, that doesn't mean that that's not, it's a very complicated process, and because we're a town that has unions and collective bargaining, it's even more complicated, but you can see almost right off by joining a larger group that we're going to be able to save money in that end. Another note, one of the advantages of working in Braintree and knowing Weymouth and Braintree, the CMAS facility, and Joe Sullivan may have talked to you about it, and I know that he's going to be looking at it also. I would, and Mr. Powers too, I believe, I would be looking to CMAS to be able to, let me tell you that the trucks, the waste management trucks that come through Weymouth go all the way to Rochester. They don't really have to go that far. If they go to Braintree and stop there and save on half the trip, I think we can lower the tipping fee in Weymouth and do something with Braintree. Braintree's tipping fee is half of what the other communities, because they have to deal with CMAS in their community. Trash pickup, we ought to be able to regionalize. At the very least with Weymouth and Braintree. I know that they've looked at it in Quincy, and I'm not quite sure if that's viable. Maybe it's too large a city, but we'd certainly be looking to at least to approach them and see if that could be. But there really is no reason why we can't come together with recycling, trash pickup with Braintree, and I think we can save and get coming. That'll be recurring revenues every year. So I think that's one area. We have to look for new revenues, not tax, not fees. The people are feed out and they're taxed out. It's new revenues, and we need to be imaginative in that effort. Let's take a look at economic development. What are we doing in the town of Weymouth for economic development? Our economic development people and our planning department are stressed to the max. We have one town planner working on Greenbush, major project. The base, major project. That same individual is also working on capital plan, is also working on community preservation. They're maxed out. We need to have pure economic development and free up the economic development people within the planning department to explore new means of revenue. We've got to do that. We've got to be imaginative, and we've got to start now.
Does that mean hiring more people?
It may. It may mean hiring more people in areas that need it, and mixing and maybe joining, combining in other areas where we don't. And again, I believe that's going to come out with measurement, true measurement.
What should happen to Legion Field?
Legion Field at this point in time, and again, as you probably know, I did not vote for the plan itself, and it wasn't that I didn't think something needed to be done at Legion. It certainly did, and I initially applauded the mayor for having the public hearings and at least coming up with the plan. I really believe he tried. Initially applauded the mayor for having the public hearings and at least coming up with the plan. I really believe he tried when he did that. Certainly wasn't, there was an awful lot of opposition, as you know. What I would do immediate is get a lot of that soil out of there. Now we're talking about probably $1.2 to $1.4 million to accomplish three things. One, remove the soil that's there now and should be removed for aesthetic reasons, and because the peat now is already packed and we believe the water has come up. That's number one. Number two, take out those stands. What do they call them?
Grandstands.
Yes, thank you. They're a hazard, and they're dangerous, and it's a safety hazard. They've got to come out immediately. That's about a $400,000 item. We need to shore up, because it's in good shape.
That's part of the 1.2, 1.4
yes.
That's over and above.
Yes, the soil would be about a $400 hit, as would the stands, and now I think you're looking at about a $200,000 hit on getting the wall as you come in. It's in pretty good shape, and you want to shore that up and make sure that it doesn't deteriorate, and that's to the cost of about $200,000. So we're looking at a little over $1 million at the very, and drainage, excuse me, the biggest thing, drainage. It's going to cost at least about a $400,000 to get in there, do what needs to be done for drainage, because without that, I mean, we've got people on the perimeter complaining about water coming into their cellars. That has got to be fixed first. So it's drainage, the stands, getting rid of that for aesthetic reasons and for the packing reasons, getting rid of that excess soil and shoring up the wall. That, I believe, is immediate before we even consider doing anything else.
So what that does, though, is, I mean, basically it cleans it up and it restores it to at least a passive
exactly.
recreational area. Is that your goal?
It is.
So you want to do passive recreation on it?
I haven't gotten beyond that, beyond making it clear from the hearings that I attended, was that passive recreation was pretty much the mandate. They want someplace they can walk around. They want it to be open and green.
That's what the neighbors said, the people on Broad
Yes,
Street,
and
Middle
actually,
Street.
Jack, to be honest with you, I have never seen an issue draw out so many residents from, not only, of course, the residents themselves just want certain things, but this drew people from all over town, every village.
Yeah, I mean, if you go down to the neck, you go down to West Augusta area,
Yes.
I don't think you're going to get the same kind of reaction on what should be on Legion Field.
You're absolutely correct, but different issues too. The neighbors, the direct neighbors, and we had surveys and we had petitions and we had all kinds of things done through the neighbors, and I went down, walked around the perimeter and talked to them. Their main issue is, of course, traffic, things that will ultimately affect them directly. And they don't want to have a lot of noise, a lot of the lighting. They were afraid would come into their homes, things that would obviously affect them directly. Those are those issues.
On that subject, though, I mean, that has been that use there for years. I mean, it was the
Yes.
football field for years, and
Exactly.
then even after that, Pop
Soccer.
Warner still played there, and soccer still played there, so it's not like they haven't had those type of activities before.
Exactly, and I believe the land was deeded with the sense of a recreational, athletic sort of, deeded with that in mind. So, we're going to be able to eliminate it? I would say no. And I think that the neighbors, I don't think they'd mind if you replace exactly what used to be there. And consider that there was still a lot of open space walkway. You still had the track, even though it wasn't in great shape, that people could come and walk around and do their thing. They were very upset about the tennis courts being downgraded or eliminating one part of the tennis courts. They wanted to increase that. Another group wanted basketball. So everybody wants different things. I think what we do is we're going to have to take a look at that again and have public hearings and be open to the public and go with the majority. I mean, you're not going to be able to satisfy everybody or please everyone. But the immediate is to get it up to the level where you can even put a plan in place.
When you talk about economic development, a lot of the focus now is on Southfield, as well it should, because it's so huge. But it's a little like focusing on the big dig as the only construction project in Massachusetts. Everything else gets fallen by the wayside. If you take a ride through Bicknell Square, ever since the pharmacy left there, 15 years ago, there hasn't been a lot of new business in there. There's still some vacant storefronts. That McDonald's that burnt down there has never been reclaimed. Some of the older stores are remaining vacant, or they're getting non-revenue producing type of use out of them. Jackson Square, there's still a lot of potential there. Mm-hmm. Even though you've got Toma there, and some of the other areas on Broad Street have been built up, and Columbia Square as well. Those areas don't seem to be getting the kind of attention that Southfield is getting, or that the Abington Line area is getting. What would Mayor Kay do to increase economic development there, or to try to stimulate some kind of a growth?
Sure.
I see the
biggest. There you go. Yes, you do. I think the biggest impact in the biggest area that needs the attention right now is Route 3A. If you look at any other area on the South Shore where you're hugging a shoreline, you don't see Route 3A. You don't see that in Hingham. You don't see it in Duxbury. I think that I know we can do better there. And we can enhance that whole 3A area. We have a wonderful shoreline, and it is the jewel. But he calls everything they want to in New Weymouth the jewel, but that shoreline it should be protected. The aesthetics of 3A is a mess. I know that we're subject to a lot of state area, the state has to hone in on Route 3A it being a state road, but there's a lot of ways that we can enhance just by putting up some trees, by getting the businesses involved in some sort of a program where they clean up their own, and maybe we give them some incentives. But this is where I think an economic developer really belongs. Key in on that. You're right, the base is huge, and we're not going to develop economically the base. That's going. The plan is in place, and we're not going to be able to do anything with that. Let's look at our own areas.